Hello, and welcome to this episode of Articulate Thoughts, which is a personal blog of mine where I share some thoughts, ideas, observations, and experiences with conscious dance, which is a movement practice that uses dance as a form of moving meditation. And this week's episode is entitled A Good Fight. And it is a direct reference to one of Bruce Lee's quotes from his movie Enter the Dragon. And he's talking. There's a scene where he's talking with his sifu or a master, his kung fu teacher, and he is asked. I forgot the question he was asked, but his response is, um, he said where Bruce Lee says, "A good fight is like a play, but must be played seriously." And a little later on, he talks about emotional content, and I had this one friend where we went into deep depth about this conversation in the movie and like what it meant. And it's a very interesting thing because we get plugged into these roles as human beings. You know, we have a role as a child or as a parent, or when we go to work, I have a role as a server where I'm constantly looking out for other people's needs and like looking for to fulfill other people's needs and make sure they're met. And like as a friend or a lover, and there's just all these different categories or roles that we come into play with. And that's a part of life. And like if we want to have a strong positive impact on other people, we have to take those roles seriously. But there's a very fine line between that and knowing oneself and understanding that it is just a role, and there's more to individual's personal identity or to their self or their way of being or their spirit. There's more than just that role. And I had this very interesting observation this past weekend. Um, there was a big UFC fight, and there's a lot of build up, and it was kind of promoted like this Ireland versus Russia type of vibe to it. And I'm not exactly sure how much I agree with marketing a mixed martial arts competition like that, but that's you know that's how they sold it, and I'm pretty sure it was very successful in terms of how many people watched the fight. And there was a lot of build up. There was a lot of animosity. There was a lot of aggressive things being said in the press conferences and such. And at the end of the fight, there was a brawl outside of the octagon. The fight was over, and then one of the fighters jumped over the cage and the other person's camp and started fighting and all this other stuff. And this whole thing of a good fight is like a play being played seriously. But I think that in my opinion, in my observation, it's kind of like they took the role a little too seriously, and they just like, I wonder what where was that line in their consciousness where like the ego is understanding that they're playing this role, or like the ego just kind of took over. And I'm not a professional fighter. I've never performed as a fighter before, but I could just imagine all the nerves and all the emotions that are running through these people, because it's a huge sacrifice to train and prepare for that kind of level of competition. And that's something that a vast majority of individuals on this planet will never understand. So, I know I do have my own opinions and criticisms, but I don't stand strongly by it, because I know that's something that there is something I don't understand about that. But my whole big takeaway from the entire situation, how I want to apply it to conscious dance, is that time on the dance floor when I'm in a conscious dance, it's a time for me to really be centered within myself. And there is a difference between stillness meditation and moving meditation, and both are very useful and very powerful. And I am slowly but surely integrating stillness meditation more into a regular practice. But I do willingly invest that time and energy to investigate the movement meditation aspect, and that I think helps me be really centered, and not let my ego get taken over into these certain situations that become rather stressful, or just get overtaken by emotional waves. And I think that's a big thing for me, because when I was younger, I was constantly like at a temper, and I got annoyed a lot, and I was just an emotional wreck. I was just reacting constantly to everything around me. And um, I had this idea in my head of that I didn't know what my role was, so I couldn't even play the role of anything seriously. And I think that in itself also created a state of chaos within myself because I didn't know my role and I didn't have enough centeredness within myself. So it was just constantly negative reactions to anything I felt like I couldn't control, which was practically everything. So on over the years, like what the movement meditation has brought to my life is just, a stability and knowingness that whatever happens in my life, I will at least have the dance, and that's something that I could go to where it's a place where I could just have time for myself and be myself and not have to worry about what roles I have to fulfill or how seriously am I playing those roles, and just kind of let the universal language of music just be present with me and be present with that, and then create some kind of interaction that expresses something and move the energy within my body so I'm not in a stagnant place. And there's something interesting too, also for that Bruce Lee had said, not in a movie particular, but just in an interview, he had said, "Moving water never gets stale, so just keep on flowing." And the movement meditation, the dance, that's what I feel is like one of the great benefits, and why I continue to practice on a regular basis. So yeah, I hoped today was a useful thing, and like it was something that's been on my mind that I haven't talked to a lot of people about. So um, I was really glad to just get these thoughts out on some sort of way, shape, or form. And if you tuned in and listened, thank you very much and for your time. And inshallah, I'll see you on the dance floor.